Y'all, we back in the building. Okay, so I can't even make y'all wait for this. Like, we just need to go ahead and get into this tea. I don't know if any of you guys are going to BravoCon. All right, I'm not. But if you are, we have some big news. Karen Huger will be attending BravoCon, y'all. Karen Huger is back in the building. Yes, this is exciting for a lot of reasons. This will be the first time that Karen Huger steps in front of an audience like this. And to do it in front of an audience of this magnitude, y'all, that is huge. And so, they are going to be asking some interesting questions. I would imagine, I- for me personally, I feel like she deserves more of a one on one sit down with Andy. But again, and I want to shout out Reality Entertainment TV. I literally had not seen this anywhere else. And I literally just was like sitting down to do this. And I said, oh my God, if this is true, y'all, Karen at the BravoCon, man, that is going to be something. Again, I would have probably preferred a one-on-one sit down with Andy uninterrupted, but the problem with a one-on-one sit down is that it can be edited and heavily edited. And this is not going to be a platform that can be edited because people are going to have their phones out. People are going to be able to report on this live from the stage. So I would imagine that either she's joining a panel, she will be on a small panel, or maybe just making some appearances. I would imagine at this point in time that she's probably been coached on how to respond to questions, if she can respond to those questions, or if they may wait to say, continue to watch the season play out and you'll get your answers as the show progresses, as a way to hype up Karen's potential return. I mean, I don't know. I'm just taking a guess. I mean, we did see her a little bit of her at the beginning of the season, but we didn't really get to see Karen in her full glory. So I'm just interested in seeing how this all plays out. Anyway, if you're going to BravoCon, let us know in the chat down below. I do think it's pretty exciting news, if I do say so myself. All right, so let's continue on. We got some, man, it's like never ending with Tamar, K.Michelle, and the Braxtons. Y'all know the latest episode of the Braxtons came out last night, and I did see the episode, and we will discuss in brief, right? Okay, so let's get into the story because y'all got to tell me, are the people making a mountain out of a molehill, or do you think that the people are justified in dragging Trina in this instance? So let's talk about it. So I saw this headline on the Jasmine brand earlier, and it says Trina Braxton faces backlash for supporting K. Michelle's country album amid Tamar Braxton feud. Y'all know Tamar and K. Michelle have been feuding since the dawn of time at this point. But K. Michelle, who is allegedly supposed to be on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, because they haven't confirmed anything officially, but we know. Trina is now at the center of the dragorization because she has been publicly supporting K. Michelle's upcoming country album. Now, y'all, here's the thing. Some people think it's messy because everybody knows that K. Michelle has called Tamar a Muppet, right? But K. Michelle has been posting, promoting her bringing Nashville to Atlanta private listening event, writing, I love country music. So K. Michelle then replied, come see me, Trina, DM me, I'll set it up. The album is great. Now, you tell me, is this harmless or is it foul? Is it harmless or is it foul? Is Trina responsible for also taking on Tamar's public beefs, given that they clearly aren't ever on the best of terms, seemingly, allegedly. And then, two, Tamar has had a lot of beefs publicly with people. So, is Trina not supposed to support people that Tamar has beef with? That's that's the question I'm asking you in the chat. I mean, I don't know the friendship level between K.Michelle and Trina. So without that key piece of information, it's really hard to say. And maybe this is also one of the reasons why Tamar feels the way she feels about her family, potentially, right? You just don't really know the entire layer of conflict that is apparently evident within the Braxton sisters sistership, right? So people are going off anyway. People are calling her messy. They're saying these sisters are a curse. Ew, trifling. Trina, please don't do it. She is your sister. I know you may be mad, but don't do it. And then someone else points out, here's the thing. If you're my sister's op, you're now my op. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but this is shady. It will likely definitely be used against Trina at this point. Someone says you don't have to be their op, just not actively seek to fraternize with people who vehemently dislike your sister. They would never do that to Tony. I guess the argument on the other half of that is that Tamar and Tony are completely different people. You don't really see Tony beefing with very many people in the public eye at all. But Tony comes from an era of artistry that is very different from the era that Tamar has currently immersed herself in. Tony is a legacy act, and that legacy act stems from a time period where artists were groomed by A&R reps to achieve a certain level of grace in the face of, public scrutiny, even to their own detriment at times, as we've often seen happen with certain artists like Tony Braxton. But at the end of the day, you're just not going to see that from Tony. But Tamar is in a bit of a different era of social media with regards to her real fame. Let's really talk about it. Her real fame, right? The space where she is now. It is very centered on reality TV, social media, and oftentimes reality TV is steeped in beef, brawl, and the like. So I think that comparing the two would be very different because I think that if Tony were to have a beef, which is why we reacted the way that we did when we saw Tony get up in that argument and, shake the table at Tamar, because it's kind of like we're not used to seeing that from Tony Braxton and it doesn't really compute for our brains. Anyway, another commenter said the girl then said her sisters don't like her and the people told her to shut up. Someone else says it's intentional shade. Tamar pulled Trina's hair, kicked her, cursed everyone out, and Trina knew what she was doing. Someone else says, yeah, K.Michelle has made Tamar cry on national TV, calling her a Muppet. This ain't right at all. And I also too wonder if the sisters hold Tamar's beefs in the same regard that the fans do, that the fan community does. I don't think that they do. I just don't. I mean, it's part of the reason why in the episode that aired last night, I felt like, is it just me? Does Tony Braxton felt oddly like out of it in last night's episode. She's obviously dealing with the whole Angie Stone of it all, but throughout this latest episode this week, I just felt like she had a whole blank spot in her memory of what happened in the showdown with the sisters. She didn't seem to remember anything getting physical. She didn't remember Tamar knocking the glass off the table. She didn't remember Tamar pulling Trina's hair or kicking her, which Tamar also admits to. So it's very odd to me how she just sort of blacked all of it out. But maybe again, her A&R trained artistry mind blacked it all out. Like maybe she's just like, I can't even believe I was associated with that type of drama, right? But I'm like, girl, you're on a reality TV show. This is what it is nowadays. And then it was so crazy to me hearing Tamar refer to Tony getting up and shaking the table as though Tony were on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. When I'm like, well, Tamar, you actually gave us quite a bit more theatrics that were akin to Jersey or Jersey Shore in that moment. But I digress. I just felt like listening to Tamar's recount of what happened that night was very odd to me. And maybe it's the editing of the show. I have to just also give it to that too, because I felt like for me as a viewer, when I watch the playback of this whole dinner, it is really a conversation about something that is well known. Tamar's position was she felt like one, y'all sent the cease and desist. I really literally just watched that scene all over again. I heard her say it. And some people seem to forget that she said that, but okay. Then it was who gave the attorney my address, right? When I would wager to think that the address could have come from the person who actually sent the cease and desist. So unless you're saying to us that we all think it's the brother that sent it, if you're telling us that he would have no knowledge of where you lived, then I would also wager to say that a good attorney and a good investigator would easily find that information out without needing help from the family. And also, the attorney has already told the world that none of the sisters knew about the cease and desist. The next point that she brings up, because she pivots several times, which could also mean that she was upset about several things. I'll give her that because you can also be upset about more than one thing. The fact that she felt like she didn't get any support when she texted about the cease and desist. But I don't know, again, because they have such a history of drama and toxicity within their sistership, it seems, at least from what we can see via the public. I don't know where space they were in to, at that point, even warrant, I'm going to support you in this when maybe they didn't support the idea at all. And then her next argument was that the cease and desist was something that was affecting her business. So again, at that point, the cease and desist needs to be blamed on the person that sent it, which you know who that person is. It's not the sisters, allegedly, right? According to the attorney who sent it. So you know your anger and your frustration needs to be directed at the appropriate party. Now, if the argument in this situation is that you don't feel supported by your sisters in general, then that is something that we can work with. That to me is also very valid. But I would also argue that in this situation, that I feel as though Tamar and the sisters probably just don't need to be around each other. I think that there's a situation that you can probably see with just family in general, family, friendships, or whatever. For us as fans, if you're a fan of Tamar, you may not feel like Tamar is toxic. You may feel like she is the victim in the situation. If you are more a fan of Tony or the sisters, you may feel like, yeah, it's Tamar, it's Tamar. But if you're a fan of Tamar's, you may feel like, yeah, it's the sisters, they're the problem. But I think there's a meeting in the middle of maybe they're just toxic for each other. Maybe they are toxic for Tamar and Tamar is toxic for them. And I think that at a certain point in time, you just got to learn to say, as Phil states, You got to learn how to set some boundaries and how to move forward without them in your life. And I would wager to think that there are some of these issues that Tamar has that she will still continue to have to deal with because publicly she tends to have relationships with certain individuals that continue to derail her healing, allegedly, right? In terms of where she may be trying to go, things that may be setting her back. We can look at Candy, we can look at K.Michelle, the most recent one where she woke up in her home and she didn't know what had happened to her, the fallout from that. I went back to look at her show Get Your Life. At the end of that show and dealing with the fallout from that breakup, there was a whole ordeal that she also went through. I think that if you're going to do reality TV, you got to either be able to handle everything that comes with it. And I think that that is probably difficult for anybody, but you also have to be able to manage the stress. And if you can't, then is this the medium for you? Because what you don't want to be doing is continuously setting little fires and then screaming that you're burning from a fire that you set. If you keep deciding to go back to the thing that hurt you, you can't be surprised that it keeps hurting you. And I'm not just talking about her family, I'm talking about reality TV. And the thing that seems to always come back to her, that she always comes back to, is being on tour, being in front of her fans, making music, and doing other shows that are not centered around the drama of either her sisterhood or ensemble cast drama. That's just me. That's what I would advise if I were working with her, and that would ease a lot, I think, of her angst. And the sisters could move forward. If she needs that money back from Tawanda, Tawanda, go ahead and give that girl her money back. Okay? Like, give her money back. At this point, if you got it like that, just give it to her. You can take that money that you spent for that wedding, and you could have gave her that money. I don't know how much the wedding cost. I'm just saying that way you won't owe nobody nothing, and then you all can move on with nothing else to say to each other. Yes, you will always be sisters, but that does not mean that you have to keep coming into contact with each other to disrupt each other's lives. Period. In the spirit of moving on, I happen to see this for those of you guys who were requesting that I recap Selling Sunset. Apparently, Chrishell is out. I told y'all that I had been kind of on the fence about watching Selling Sunset. The last season, I felt so triggered, and I really couldn't ascertain why, but I did feel like, I feel like there are some microaggressions happening on this show that I just don't really get with. And I think it oftentimes happen when you have a cast that is like predominantly white, and then you kind of intersperse a character of color here or there, right? And so it just, if it's not a natural friendship connection, then I feel like you always end up with these shows that make us feel like, oh my God, like, why do I feel triggered watching this? So I think that that had happened a lot for me with Chelsea in particular. Amanza, not as much, because I feel like Amanza is a bit more integrated into the group naturally. She has history with this group, but I also feel like Amanza on this show kind of seeks acceptance or validation from the group in a way that I don't think that Chelsea does. And I think that that has always seemingly been at play, but that's again my viewpoint as a viewer, right? That's just my thought, and I think it could be a lot of things. I think it could be, Amanda's situations in life and then watching all of her friends, in this real estate space and they're thriving, and she had to kind of find her way in that space. She's more of someone who is a creative and less somebody who is into the real estate business itself. So it does kind of feel like, is she rolling in the money like that? Is she got it like that, like the rest of them? I think that there's a little bit of that at play. Whereas I feel like for Chelsea, she kind of came in with Christine, so there was already a side eye. Then there was this whole idea that she had to sell a house in order to make it when nobody else has had to do that. And I just feel like because she doesn't acquiesce to the group dynamics or norms, that leaves her as an outcast typically. And it seems like in this season, Chrishell had been the person who had been the most vocal in support of Chelsea. And I just think that also with Chrishell battling with Nicole the way that she had to do, I think that this is probably, for me, the best decision that she can make for herself. But I don't know, are we watching it without Chrishell? Because she was kind of like, for some people, the hero in the beginning, and then she sort of became the anti-hero, but she was still, to me, that same like, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna let y'all walk all over me no more. Because I felt like she did that in her first couple of seasons. But that's just me. Anyway, she says, I vacillated back and forth with this decision in the past. I have to be honest, having have come from nothing, it's really hard to turn down something like this. Plus, the show's producers can be persuasive. But now, even Jesus Christ himself can get her to come back for season 10, and neither can Selling Sunset creator Adam DeVello, who Stause says has been calling and texting 100 times a day. Netflix did not comment. She says, I've gotten to a place where I don't need the show financially. I'm lucky to have other forms of employment. Plus, it's no longer good for my mental health. Period. And this to me is a great lesson for Tamar because I just feel like it gets to a point where if you feel like this is the case, it's happened show after show after show in these ensemble casts. Why keep doing them? Why? It's not mentally healthy for you. It's really not. I'm going to touch on Bel-Collective, but I'm going to keep it brief as this season has been. We still have the ladies in the Gulf Coast on Carrie's cash trip. They're still trying to break down this idea of why Latrice didn't tell Letitia about what Mandy Girl told Latrice and Tambra. Tambra has never really stepped up to say, "Oh, girl, I knew too." Maybe she's not that close to Letitia though, because it seems like Latrice and Letitia were talking every day, and I don't know that that's the case with Tambra because I feel like again Tambra is booked and busy, and Tambra was also not at that event that party at Latrice's house, so she has been recused from any level of responsibility in this matter. And Latrice, which I think is a actual, it actually speaks to Latrice's character a little bit that she didn't throw Tambra under the bus when she could have. But I do understand if Letitia knew nothing about this and Latrice and her are talking every day, I can understand why Letitia would feel hurt and upset about her friend not telling her this information when she knew about it. Latrice says she hasn't seen anything untoward that Glenn had been doing with her own eyes, but she does feel like Mandy Girl is truthful in what she says. So she is basically telling Letitia, you should believe what Amanda Girl is saying. The problem is, you know, Letitia is going to have a bit of cognitive dissonance in this situation, meaning her head and her heart, they also have a history together, her and Glenn. And I just think that after the whole baby situation a few seasons ago, everything that they've been through, I just don't think that she's going to leave him. And I just think that they're going to be destined to be together. And I think at the end of the episode, you see Letitia and Latrice trying to come to a point of understanding of where they now are in their friendship. Latrice really wants to know, like, do we F with each other or not? And for Letitia, it's a case where she's just going to have to take it slow. And it feels like they're back to where they started, or at least they're back to where they ended the last season from. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. All I know is that next week is the finale. So let me know what your thoughts were about. I tried to give you guys a little bit of recap for both Bel-Collective and the Braxtons, mixed in with a little bit of news today. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And of course, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I will catch you in the next video.